So today's video is all about pond plants. I've got a two-part question. Can water plants grow in gravel? And the second part is, will pond plants grow in gravel? Stay tuned for the Any Pond Showcase. So for this video, I thought I'd get into the actual pond because then I can explain to you which plants can survive or which plants can grow in gravel and which plants will not like it, or you'd better off putting them in pots. So what I've got here is I've got a water lily that literally I've cable tied to a rock. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but I've cable tied a water lily rhizome onto a rock, and because this is a clear ecosystem pond, it sinks to the bottom, and then the leaves and the flowers, you can see the flowers, they will grow up. Now, if you've not got substrate on the bottom, like an ecosystem pond, you've got gravel, you've got pockets of, if you're putting in planting pockets when you're building an ecosystem pond, you can plant them straight into the gravel or straight into the planting pockets, or you can cable tie them to a rock and then throw them into where you want them to grow. And if they don't grow, then you can always take them out and repot them. But flowering plants, as you can see this one, it's not doing as well as what it would if you put it in some potting media. So aquatic plants, they need food exactly the same as any other plant. Yes, they can survive in gravel. Yes, they will sit there in gravel. Yes, they will be able to take a certain amount of nutrients from the water. So if you've got a fish pond, you may be saying, Mark, my plants are doing fine in gravel. Yep, because you've got fish. Because you're feeding the fish defecate, they're feeding the water lilies. So having plants in gravel in a fish pond, you've got fish feces that is natural fertilizer. It's the best fertilizer that you can actually get for growing pond plants. Silt, alluvium clay, alluvium deposits, a riverbed is the best soil that you can get for growing plants. So yes, water lilies can grow in gravel. Yes, water lilies will sit in gravel, but if you put them into aquatic soil and feed your water lilies, you're going to get much better results. And that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing in a future video, is how to look after or how to grow on water lilies. So anything that flowers wants a lot of food or a good amount of food. So if you've got a fish pond, lots of food goes in, lots of feces come out, then there's a lot of food. Especially if you're using UV sterilization to remove or to control algae, you're going to still have a lot of nitrates, a lot of ammonia. Now, one thing with aquatic plants is most of them, they don't actually remove nutrients from the water. They remove nutrients from the soil or the nutrients within the soil, like water lilies. They will grow, but they will do much better if there's more nutrients in there for them to feed on. Very fine roots. They don't want to grow in gravel, they want to grow in silt, which is literally like porridge on the bottom of a lake. They want to grow along, they don't want to be impeded. If they find a rock, they go round it. If you're putting the water lilies in gravel or cable tying a lily to gravel, yes, they will grow, but if you want to have a lily pool, put your lilies in potting media. All of the plants around this particular pond, they're all grown in soil. So plants will grow in gravel, providing that there's enough nutrients in the water. If you're limiting the amount of nutrients in the water, let's say that you're not feeding fish, then the nutrients needs to come from somewhere. It may come from rain. But nutrients in water feed the plants. So if you've got plants that are struggling in gravel, it's because of the lack of food. If you've got water lilies that haven't flowered, it's because of a lack of food. They've got enough warmth, they've got enough moisture, they're just starving. They haven't got enough food to reproduce the flowers. So if your lilies haven't flowered, but they're punching up loads of leaves, then it's because of food, and you must fertilize the plants. A lot of people can get away with it because it's more of a fish pool rather than a water garden or something where there's a lot of plants in there all competing for food. When you've got a water garden, you don't have so much algae. Natural algae is perfectly fine, but in a fish pool setting, you're always combating algae. You're always combating, you know, things that happen with a sterile pool environment. So putting more plants in, a floating raft, yeah, it's going to take nutrients from the water. A lot of plants will actually grow in water just fine. So if you think about an aquaponics system, there's no media, it's literally roots in water. They take the nutrients from the water. Now obviously you're feeding the water to feed the plants, so that's why you put plant food into the water. When you've got a fish pond, you're feeding the fish, you're adding nutrients to the water. So the question today is, can plants grow in gravel? Yes, but it depends. Another side of that question, will plants grow in gravel? Yes, but it depends. So, like all other garden plants, all water plants want something different. You've got great big plants like the trees. They want something different to a very small, low-growing ground cover plant. It's exactly the same with the pond plants. Some will love it in gravel, some will hate it in gravel. Some will sit there dormant and wait for silt to deposit in the gravel, and some will just sit there and then die because of a lack of nutrients. So it's just like any other form of gardening. Water gardening is a whole array. You've got a whole bouquet of different flowers. As a general rule of thumb, if you want lots of flowers, feed your water plants. Don't grow them in just gravel unless you've got a source of fish feces.